The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge. Peter Senge was born in 1947 and raised in Stanford, California. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace from Stanford University, where he also studied philosophy. He earned his Master's in Social Systems Modeling from MIT in 1972 and a Ph.D. in Management from MIT's Sloan School of Management in 1978. Today, Peter is a senior lecturer at the MIT Sloan School of Management, co-faculty at the New England Complex Systems Institute, and he created and leads the Society of Learning at MIT. This organization helps with the communication of ideas between large corporations. Learning is innate in all of us. Anthropologist Edward Hall calls the drive to learn the most basic drive in the human species. Through learning, we recreate ourselves. Dialogue differs from the more common discussion, which has its roots with percussion and concussion, literally a heaving of ideas back and forth in a winner-takes-all competition. The discipline of team learning starts with dialogue, the capacity of members of a team to suspend assumptions and enter into a genuine thinking together. To the Greeks, dialogos meant the free flowing of meaning through a group, allowing the group to discover insights not attainable individually. The 5 disciplines. First, personal mastery is a discipline of continually clarifying and deepening our personal vision, of focusing on energies, of developing patience, and of seeing reality objectively. Mental models. They are deeply ingrained assumptions, generalizations, or even pictures of images that influence how we understand the world and how we take action. Building a shared vision, a practice of unearthing shared pictures of the future that foster genuine commitment and enrollment rather than compliance. Team learning starts with dialogue, the capacity of members of a team to suspend assumptions and enter into genuine thinking together. Systems thinking, the 5th discipline that integrates the other 4. The 5th discipline. Systems thinking is a discipline for seeing wholes. It is a framework for seeing interrelationships rather than things, for seeing patterns rather than static snapshots. Systems thinking offers a language that begins by reconstructing how we think. Metanoia, a shift of mind. To grasp the meaning of metanoia is to grasp the deeper meaning of learning, for learning also involves a fundamental shift or movement of mind. Laws of the 5th discipline. Solutions that merely shift problems from one part of the system to another often go undetected because those who solved the first problem are different from those who inherit the new problem. Systems thinking has a name for this phenomena: compensating feedback, when well-intentioned interventions call forth responses from a system that offset the benefits of the intervention. The more effort you expend trying to improve matters, the more effort seems to be required. Low-leverage interventions would be much less alluring if it were not for the fact that many actually work, in the short term. In complex human systems, there are always many ways to make things look better in the short run. Only eventually does the compensating feedback come back to haunt you. Pushing harder and harder on familiar solutions while fundamental problems persist or worsen is a reliable indicator of non-systemic thinking. What is often called the "what we need here is a bigger hammer" syndrome. Sometimes the easy or familiar solution is not only ineffective, but addictive and dangerous. The long-term, most insidious consequence of applying non-systemic solutions is increased need for more and more of the solution. Virtually all natural systems, from ecosystems to animals to organizations, have intrinsically optimal rates of growth. The optimal rate is far less than the fastest possible growth. When growth becomes excessive, the system itself will seek to compensate by slowing down, perhaps putting the organization's survival at risk in the process. There is a fundamental mismatch between the nature of reality in complex systems and our predominant ways of thinking about that reality. The first step in correcting that mismatch is to let go of the notion that cause and effect are close in time and space. There are no simple rules for finding high-leverage changes, but there are ways of thinking that make finding them more likely. Learning to see underlying structures rather than events is a starting point. Thinking in terms of processes of change rather than snapshots is another. Sometimes the naughtiest dilemmas, when seen from the system's point of view, aren't dilemmas at all. They are artifacts of snapshot rather than process thinking, and appear in a whole new light once you think consciously of change over time. Living systems have integrity. Their character depends on the whole. The same is true for organizations. Understanding the most challenging managerial issues requires seeing the whole system that generates the issues. We all tend to blame someone else for our problems. Systems thinking shows us that there is no separate other, that you and the someone else are part of a single system. The cure lies in your relationship with your enemy. Michael Felding wrote in the Reason in Practice journal that there seems to be a lack of understanding of pervasiveness of power in organizational life or any realistic strategy for incorporating it into theory and practice in the learning organization. He also wrote that dialogue can only bear so much reality, and the reality is asked to carry is too readily assumed to be both amenable and available to dialogic engagement. And thirdly, he wrote that the desire to make work a transformational experience is in danger of sailing too close to the wind of totalitarianism. Mark Esterby Smith wrote in a Human Relations journal that action research, where consultants study systematically the consequences of changes and initiatives that they themselves have a hand in generating, may lead to deep insight into organizations based on long-term relationships. He saw this as a positive. As a weakness, it is unlikely to produce any strong critiques either of the methods used or the outcomes claimed for them. Real learning gets to the heart of what it means to be human. Through learning, we recreate ourselves. Through learning, we become able to do something we were never able to do. Through learning, we perceive the world and our relationship to it. Through learning, we extend our capacity to create, to be a part of the generative process of life. There is within each of us a deep hunger for this type of learning. It is vital that the 5 disciplines develop an ensemble. That is why systems thinking is the 5th discipline. It is the discipline that integrates the other disciplines and fuses them into a coherent body of theory and practice. It keeps them from being separate gimmicks or the latest organization change fads. By enhancing each of the other disciplines, it continually reminds us that the whole can exceed the sum of its parts. For some of the current applications, Edgar Schein cites this work in his 2010 Organizational Culture and Leadership book. Michael Fallon cites this work in his book, The New Meaning of Educational Change. And the Society for Organizational Learning offers workshops and consulting for any type of organization. Thanks for listening, and remember, the key to seeing reality systematically is seeing circles of influence rather than straight lines.